If only I could work out which buttons to press. Unbelievable. My Stream Deck threw what's known as a hissy fit. So there we go. Thank you so much for joining me on this exciting Friday afternoon / evening. Biscuits is in the chat. Marcus is here. Christina is here. Julia is here with me. And of course, Alien. So thank you so much for joining me today. Very exciting. And of course, everyone else whom I haven't called out and whoever else is not chatting, anyone who's out there, thank you so much for watching. I've got a little bit of a surprise for you today because we're combining 3D technology and video gaming today. I've been playing this video game called Obduction recently, and it's a lovely game, a puzzle game made by the makers of Myst. Join me for that on Mondays, 4 p.m. No, actually 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we're going to play with mind-bending puzzles and kind of interdimensional travel and all that. And I was made aware of something very exciting, and that was by Steve Davis, Backdoor 3D. He has found something on Renderosity in which a user named Feldude, I believe, here this is it, he has extracted a HDRI image from Obduction and uses that and offers that for free. So this is kind of cool on Renderosity. And so it's a spherical proper HDRI that is extracted from the game. So if you're familiar with the game, you will recognize the background here. And he's turned that into a format that we can use in DAZ Studio, which is very, very exciting. And I've been trying to replicate that. I've been trying to do the same thing. And I've asked him in the comments, he was actually quite nice and said he did this in GIMP, which is exciting, which is cool. But I don't have GIMP, so I thought I'm going to go ahead and try that in Photoshop. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with NVIDIA's Ansel engine. It's some kind of technology that's buried inside video games in which we can literally pause the game and then go in and extract at least a spherical image from it. It's supposed to work as an HDRI. Doesn't quite work, sadly. But I've found a way to do it and then stitch it together in Photoshop to create a proper HDRI and then use that in DAZ Studio to make a little scene. So that is my plan for today, and yeah, I'm glad you can. I'm glad you can join me for that. So this is, by the way, I'm going to put these links in the description here. This is a list of Ansel supported games. So things like Mass Effect Andromeda has it built in, Obduction has it built in, which is really nice. Mirror's Edge Catalyst has it built in. My mouse keeps jumping over to my Mac, which is, always does it when I don't want it and doesn't do it when I do want it. It's one of those things. The Witcher 3 has it, and several other games have that as well. Let me just go switch that feature off because it's driving me mental. There we go. And yes, Obduction is one of them as well. There it is. So if you're into video games and if you've been thinking, hey, maybe how can I create something like my own lighting thing inside a video game, this is how to do it. So I've already loaded Obduction up here. This is a new game I've made. That's not the one that we're currently playing. I think I can just go resume. I believe that's how it works. There we go. And this is the game. So I can wander around here in this beautiful, disturbing environment. You have this game, excellent. Then I'll show you how to do this. How funny actually that you are also from Germany. We've got more German viewers than international viewers right now at this moment. That is so cool. I thought Alien was from the Netherlands. Don't know why I thought that, Alien. I thought it was one of those things. But no, it turns out Alien, Christina, and Marcus are all from Germany. And originally I'm from Germany. So it's very, very cool. So I say let's pick a nice spot here. And actually, yes, before I forget to tell you all this, I have just started, and it's literally just, I've created it, a German-speaking channel. I was going to make some of my tutorials, I was going to turn them into German-speaking versions, and I've just created one. So there we go. So perhaps we're going to pick something like this in front of Farley's house. No, actually, I know something even better. Good question, Christina. My mixer is terrible. My YouTube is also terrible. Oh, that's good. Yeah, so I think that's just that ninja playing again, maybe. Don't know. I'm going to pick a little spot here that is up this hill, and it's a little There's almost like a little graveyard somewhere here. I thought I'm going to go and make my HDRI there. Oh, there it is. Here we are. 2 little tombstones here. And there's more over here. Perfect. So I was thinking maybe we'll take a HDRI here, that we can have maybe a character that stands in front of the graveyards, and we have all this in the background. That's, you know, that's the plan. Let me have a look, actually, if it's all you, or maybe it's me. It could also be me. Let me have a look. No, it looks like OBS doesn't have a problem, so it can go and kind of send the data away. But yeah, I hope it's going to come back at one point. Try Twitch. That's another idea. Try twitch.tv/WPGuru. Let me try that. See if it's any better there. You never know. That would be pretty bad if it's not working. Come on, Twitch, you can do it. Hello. No, Twitch is just as bad. That's a shame. I'm not entirely sure what I can do there. I could just quickly, is the audio still okay? You guys can still hear me, right? Because I could potentially, if you want me to, quickly stop the stream and go via a different server. I think I'm currently going via, what is it? I believe I'm going via Dallas, Texas. That's usually good. But if it isn't, then I'm happy to go and try a different server. Shall we do that? Now, of course, it's working. Now that I'm threatening to pull the stream, you know. Interesting, isn't it? The moment I threaten to stop the stream, this is when it all comes back. Ha! Interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. Well, I'm going to carry on. See, we just have a little. No, actually, it's still kind of laggy, isn't it? Yeah, my YouTube is completely frozen out now. That is terrible. Yeah, YouTube has a major issue. Let me go and stop this, and I'll come literally right back. I'll come literally right back. I doubt it's a game. It's the same setup I use for the game, really. Thank you, Christina, for bringing that to my attention. I guess, you know, once it's wrong, it's one of those other things that I forgot to change. So I'm streaming via a completely different location now. We're going via Miami. Woohoo! That's cool. That's my neighborhood. That should work, right? Let's see if it's any better. I see a picture. Hope you can hear me. Let's see how it works. Let's see what happens. So I was literally in the game, and this is the spot that I have picked to create my HDRI. So what we need to do now is literally press Alt F2. Let me do that if I'm on the correct keyboard here. Alt F2, and then we see this menu, and that's kind of interesting. I find that very exciting. So we see Ansel at the top here, and that means we're now in this kind of paused version of the game, and we can indeed still move it around with the game controller. We're kind of at a very low ground here, but that's, you know, that's cool. We can also bank the camera, so you can do all kinds of things. So you can, not just with the gamepad, you can do that with all these little adjustments on the side, including exposure and contrast enhancements. I'm going to switch those off because they don't help in the HDRI creation, by the way. So I'm going to go switch those off and focus entirely on this little menu here where it says camera and capture. So first of all, we have the camera roll here. And if I move that, that is literally just my camera banking. So again, that doesn't help in a HDRI that we're going to create for, you know, messing around in DAZ Studio. What will help is the field of view. So 90 degrees, that's kind of what a webcam has usually. And if I go and crank that up, then I'm basically zooming in, and when I zoom out, then I'm going back and making that literally like 140 degrees. So that is really, really wide, way wider than we probably needed. We can also expose more of the sky. The only thing I think we can't do is move our own height here. And that's okay, that's okay. I'm just going to do something like this. And then it's a matter of having a look at this section here where it says capture type. Screenshot, if I were to hit the snap button now, we'll literally just take a screenshot of the whole thing except for the menu, so nothing on the left-hand side there. But if I go and change this to the first step, I can create something called super resolution. And that's very exciting because it lets me create a higher render of whatever I'm seeing on the screen now. So by default, the lowest one is something like a 4K render. But you can crank that up and the engine will tell you how much larger you can go. And it also gives you an indication of the image size here. So very exciting that you can turn this into a 30 gigabyte large image at 64,000 by 34,000 pixels. So that's absolutely incredible there. Very interesting. I don't really want to do that right now because super resolution, I mean, it's nice that it's there and you can take breathtaking screenshots of really nice scenery with that. And, sell them as artwork perhaps, or as prints, laminated prints, I don't know. Hey, Rod, how you doing? Good to see you, my friend. Very exciting. Oh, good. That's good to know, Christina. So FTL, switching FTL off, maybe I'll do that as well. That's cool. Low latency, switch that off. If you want to follow Christina's instructions, so that's the little on mixer, that's a little gear icon, bottom right, and then just disable low latency. Maybe they've got an issue there. Who knows? So what we're interested in is literally the next option, which is the 360 option. Can you see that if I zoom in like this? Difficult to tell if it's going to show that or if it's going to zoom that out. 360, that will create a truly there we go, perfect. That will create kind of a spherical image that is what's used for HDRI. So that's kind of what we need. There are two other settings here. Once again, they don't really help. There's a stereo image. I'll show you what that looks like later. That's basically two images on top of one another, so it doesn't help. And there's also a 360 stereo image. Once again, doesn't help us, but it's good for the VR crowd. So they can technically create something like 360 VR shots, or HDRIs for VR perhaps. Very interesting. So we're going to use this thing here, 360, and you'd imagine you could just tick the HDR box here and then click snap, and that would do what you'd want to do. But sadly, it doesn't. We'll do it just to show you what happens. Brightly lit screen here. If I go and hit snap, then the program goes through it and I suppose renders tiles of the image and then stitches them together. At the top of the screen, it'll tell me where it lives. So it creates an EXR image for that. And it saves it, just showed it there very, very briefly, in my regular video directory on Windows. So, oh, hey, Mike, good to see you. Thanks for dropping by. Let me just see where that is. Hey, there it is. There. That is where this image has just been saved. So this EXR image, that is it. And what happens here is, so this is my regular video directory in which Ansel creates a folder of the game that you're using. So in my case, it's Abduction. And then in there, it just drops all the screenshots in there. So this is one I took earlier. That is a regular 360 JPEG image. That's what that looks like. So it's got all the weird spherical distortions at the top and the bottom. And that's a regular image. And then the next one I'm going to show you, this one here, is in fact a stereo image. So this is what comes out when you take a stereo image. But they're regular JPEGs, so they're not anything that we can use for HDRI-age, I guess, in DAZ Studio. But if I open this one here, that's the one that we've just created, 96 megabytes in size, then Photoshop will offer to open that. And if I do that, this is what I get. And that's not really usable. So I don't know if that's a bug or if that's anything else in Ansel. So it looks like that's part of the Ansel engine. I've tried increasing the brightness, but this image has literally nothing whatsoever to do with what we're seeing here, right? So that's kind of crazy. It's Joe's birthday. Oh my God, that is so cool. 69, that is a proud, proud age. So you're so much younger than Rod. That's exciting. Very good. Congratulations. Happy birthday. That is really cool. Thank you so much for joining me. That's really nice of you. So maybe we can make a birthday render for you. That's very exciting. Rod, what I'm explaining here is how to extract. What I'm explaining here is something that may be really helpful for you when I'm posting those screenshots of abduction in the chat, in the Discord chat. Then this may be a way for you to create renders much much easier, namely using a HDRI and then just putting your characters in, and so we're going to test that out. We're going to have a little play with that. So we may do that, Christina. That's a really good idea, because currently this isn't really working. So I'm going to have to switch HDR off here. Very important, and just leave it here as 360. I can now also crank up the resolution, not quite as far as 64,000 by 35,000 pixels, but I could go as far as 8,000 by 4,000. So again, I'm not going to do that. It's more about the principle. I'm going to use the smallest thing, so to make it as fast as possible. And I'm going to go and snap a regular picture here of that. Once again, the game Ansel, I suppose Ansel, goes ahead and does all this, stitches it up, and goes and saves it in my folder. And if I open that now in Photoshop, I suppose I can just use Photoshop to do that, to open that, then that looks much more promising. There we go. Perhaps the grass stalks aren't perfect, so perhaps I'm going to pick a slightly different location there. What do you think? Those grass stalks, I don't think that's gonna work for me here. Let me try that again. If I go back to Ansel, and I'll go and actually hit done down here, whoops, and go maybe just park myself here, or maybe further down here. That's perhaps I want my character to be here. It'd be interesting to know what happens with the shadow here, if the shadow is part of the picture. So once again, once we're in here, Alt F2 will bring that menu up, and I'm going to go and crank that field of view down again. Looks like my character shadow is not here. Now this looks really, really wide, but it's going to be really good for turning that into a HDR image. So there we go. It is, Mike, it is compatible, as far as I know, with RTX and GTX GPUs. And they haven't told us how far back, but I would imagine 9 and 10 series is probably going to work. Anything before that, that's anyone's guess. But I believe it's part of the NVIDIA driver, this thing. I'm also going to leave these controls untouched here, so I could increase and decrease the exposure in here. But because it only has a percentage slider up here, that's not very accurate. So I suppose it is something, if you can tell me how much percentage one f-stop is, then we can probably make use of that. I don't know what it is. So I would imagine the HDR button should just work, but I suppose they have some testing to do there. I'm just going to create a regular screenshot now of this. And then that should be everything that we need. So back in Photoshop, let me just go and close this down. And it's such a shame that didn't come out properly. There's now this one here, and that's that. Is that the spherical? That's not the spherical image, is it? It's not what I want, is it? Yeah, I've taken a regular screenshot there. So sorry, folks. Let's go and do that again as a 360. There. Do you all have coffee? More importantly, do you have coffee? I've got coffee. There. Let's have a look at that. So that's not what we need. Spherical image. There we go. Perfect. Haha. Very good. Now we've got everything in there. So let's see what we can do here. So first of all, I'm going to go and double click on this little layer here to turn it from background into a regular image, because this isn't a HDRI currently. This is not a HDR image. So for that, I can stitch it together by faking it. So what I like to do is I'll go and add myself an exposure filter on top of this here. And with that filter, I can now go and crank up the exposure by literally one stop if I wanted to. And that's what that looks like. So I can create one with one stop over, then I have my regular image, and then I have one stop under. I can also go and do two stops over and two stops under. Kind of depends what we want to do there. So I think I'm going to go and go. Can I duplicate this layer thing here? Oops, that's not right, is it? What was that? So let's try that again. Let's go and add an exposure thing over it. That exposure is going to be like +1. That's one stop over. And I guess I can now go ahead and perhaps group these things together. How's that? I'll group them together. Then I'm going to go and duplicate that group as a new document and do that whole thing again. Duplicate that group as a new document. There's probably way easier ways to do it, but you know. Right. Okay, let me try that too. Let me go and open that. Camera raw. Where do you think I could find it? That is my first hurdle. Last time I touched a camera raw image is 15 years ago, maybe. I don't even know where to find it. And those raw images, they just opened up in Photoshop as that. But I don't really know where to do that. Bartosz, how exciting. Control J, you think? Welcome, first of all. Very nice. Let me try Control J. Oh, I see that Control J just duplicates the group, right? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Bartosz. Very nice. Filter, yes. Let me just switch that off and go into filter. See if I can find it. Camera raw filter, that one here. Oh, okay. Let's have a look. That's not something I've played with, so thank you for the tip. Let's see what we have here. Oh, great. Okay, so now we can go and add exposure this way. It looks like we're not losing as many highlights as before, especially if I have to crank it up. Yeah, Christina, thank you so much. That's a very good tip. That's a way better tip. Look at that. Okay, let me go out of that and turn this into, let's go and do this with that filter then. Yeah, look at that. This was one exposure over and I'm seeing a loss of detail. So yeah, very good idea. Let me go and do that then. Great. So first of all, get rid of the exposure filter. Ooh, how exciting. And then I'm going to turn this into, I guess, a smart object. That means we can mess around with that filter. Camera raw filter, how exciting. Wow, you guys know way more about Photoshop than I do. I only know how to take this thing out of a game and then, you know, render things in DAZ maybe. I don't even know that. Let me go and add one stop to this here. That's cool. And I guess, do we need to, I don't really know. Copy new smart object? Wow. So I guess there's many more ways of doing it. I'm just going to do it my way to just browse through this because it's less about Photoshop than it is about how to create this properly. So I'm just going to go and take 3 out. This is 1 over, and I'm just going to use JPEGs. You can of course, you know, use way better things here. I just go and save that here in one new folder. I'll call it demo, and this one I'll just call over 1. And then I guess I can go back into my smart filter here and go maybe we'll do 5 in total. So this one's over 2. How exciting. I love it. This is great. Thank you so much for the tip. I appreciate that. So over 2. we don't actually need to do anything about the regular one, but now I'm going to go and do this thing for under, so -1. I know, it's kind of the easy way, I guess. So this one is under 1. I'm sure people have written scripts for this, so that's, you know, you basically click one button, one action, Photoshop goes and does it all, you grab a coffee, that sort of thing. Then this one is under number 2. Come on, under 2, awesome, cool. This is way better than the test that I've done before. And then of course we need one that is unaltered. I suppose we have that already, just not in that folder. So I'm just going to go and just export that one as well, just without that filter applied. And I'm going to call that one standard. Woohoo! Cool, excellent, Christina. So now comes kind of the exciting part, which I always forget where that is. I think, is it under scripts? Is it under scripts? Is it under import? Is it under automate? That's the one. It's under automate. Actually, there it is. Automate, merge to HDR Pro. And that'll turn all our 5 images together into one HDRI, which is great. So let's see if it works. So it comes up with a little menu here. I can use files. I can use a whole folder. I suppose I could use a whole folder. Browse to it. And it is, in fact, the demo folder. Awesome. Yay, there we go. Those are all our 5 pictures. You can also add open files. So great. I could have probably made copies of all of these and just add all open files to that. Let's go and pop that in. Photoshop thinks about it for a moment, loads all these things into the same document. But that's not all there's to it. I believe Photoshop should also give me a little box, namely this one here, manually set EV. Awesome stuff. So luckily I've named my files, so I can now go and toggle through them here and tell Photoshop what they are. And for that I need to have a little bit of a photography background. So it's done not the best job in sorting them. I mean, it doesn't know, it just goes by file name there, I guess. And we have to look at the exposure or f-stop or ISO here. It doesn't really matter which one we pick, one will be fine. That just lets us say this one is exposed at that value, this one is one stop above it, this one is 2 stops above it, these are 1 and 2 stops below it. So I think I'm going to go with exposure time rather than f-stop. I mean, any of these will work fine. I'm going to go and have the standard image be with the standard value. So 1/60th of a second at f4 at ISO 100. That's perfect. So that's my standard image. I want to deviate from that and tell Photoshop one stop below that would be as if I had taken this at 125th of a second. That's exactly 1 stop. That's perfect. So I'll just tell Photoshop that. Then the next one is under by 2. And that, if we consider this to be correctly exposed, then a 250th of a second would be 2 stops under. That's perfect. So those are set correctly. Now I need to do the same thing with the over images. If I were to overexpose this, then the exposure time on this would be twice as hot at a 30th of a second. That's awesome. And then over 2, compared to a 60th, would be a 15th of a second. That's really all I need to do, I guess. Hit OK, and then we'll see what happens. Some other dialog comes up that I really know nothing about. I'm just going to leave that alone and just go and hit OK. And now Photoshop is really thinking about it and is creating something, somehow, that is now looking rather otherworldly, but it's because I guess all the contrasts in the image are now compressed, so I don't get harsh contrast. I just get this mix of a really flat looking image. But the cool thing now is that we can use this as a lighting source in our scenes. So let's just see if we can make that happen. If we go and save this image as in my demo folder as something like not a PSD file, but an EXR perhaps. Is there something else? Isn't there something like a HDR image? Thought we could do that. Isn't that what I did last time? Is that, oh, there we go, radiance, there we go. There we go. One of those things. Christina, thanks for letting me know, by the way, that DAZ Studio uses EXR. And Steve, if you're watching, both of you say, or Steve actually says, DAZ Studio is happy with EXR images as well. I've not really had that much experience with them, but I'm going to go and call that one Demo Hun Wrath, and I'll go and save it. It's saved. Woo! Okay, so that's interesting. Now let's see what happens if we go and open DAZ Studio and bring this image in as a light source. This should be interesting. Should be exciting. I like it. Yes, Rod, how is it going with your PC rebuild? Photoshop actions, that yeah, that's one of those things that's a little annoying when those aren't there, especially when you were used to them. There, DAZ Studio as we live and breathe. Oh my God, yes, that is terrible. Did you see on Discord that Steve has had major issues with his laptop, MSI gaming laptop for rendering? Poor Steve, my goodness, that's terrible. So yes, not good. So let's bring this image in to his computer. Basically crashed. It's kind of a crazy story there. In here, we'll head over to the render settings tab and then head over to environment, where we get the regular environment map that DAZ give us. So this is the really small image that's good for kind of preview lighting, I guess. That's where we're gonna go and browse for one. In this case, if only I remember where it was. I think it's in videos. It's in OBDUCTION, in my demo folder, and there's the demo Hunrath picture that we've just created in Photoshop. That's cool. Let's go and open that. And before we do anything else, perhaps we'll just go and drop in a primitive, perhaps a sphere, 1 meter long, 1 meter tall sphere. Let's do that and see how that looks. With the HDR in the background. So first of all, for that to happen, we need to go and switch this over to iRay preview. That's one thing. And then it'll take a little bit of time. So that's nice. That's promising. So I can see the red tinge in my sphere already. That seems to have a very soft shadow underneath it. So this is all good. I like it. But what I don't see right now is the background. For that to enable that, we just have to, once again under the environment, we just have to switch on Draw Dome. And lo and behold, when we do that, we see that. That's not good, is it? That's terrible. Oh, there we go. We were just buried in some kind of a stone wall there. Phew. Lucky us. Yeah, so perhaps it wasn't a great location for that, for shooting that HDRI. But I can see that something is happening here. So I can see the graveyard, I can see the stones here. It's all kind of cool. I think with my camera, let me just go and make that a bit wider here, so I can see a little bit more. This is kind of why I made that HDR so wide, because if you don't do that, you have an even closer impression there. So if you leave it on the regular 90 degrees that Ansel offer you there, it's not even really usable. So the only elephant in the room now, I guess, is the fact that it's a little bit light. So I wonder how we can do that. Oh, there's other things apparently that we can use, and that has to do with the actual resolution of the image. We'll get to that in a moment, I think. But for now, let me just go and see what happens if I make that a bit less dark. Sorry, a bit less light. So we've got this maybe 0.5 maybe. Doesn't actually look that good either. Could also be that I didn't create the HDRI that properly, because with my first trial that I had, things went fairly well. I must say it didn't look great. I can actually show you this. I believe it's on my desktop here somewhere on the desktop here. That's my mouse. This was my first attempt at creating an HDRI, and even though, once again, I didn't really pick a nice spot, I didn't have to do anything. That was when I didn't use the camera raw. That's when I literally just exported this as a JPEG and then just used the exposure filter in the layers. That's how I did it there. I thought that was a little bit harsh, so I thought that was, I would have liked a slightly softer background there. We could do, Christina, that is a possibility, maybe on, let me go and bring this back to 2 was the default. 2 is actually way too much, isn't it? Let's go 1. Let's go with 1, and we can see if under the tone mapping, we can just increase the contrast. That's possible. There's also exposure that we can go and do things with. Yes, look at that. Ah, very clever. Good, let me just go bring this back. Police is already on their way. I'm doing something illegal, apparently. So there, let's go and drag the exposure value down. Oh yeah, look at that. That's not bad. So it's very minimal, the type of change that I need to make here. Perhaps I'm better off changing this the other way, I guess. Yes, exactly. SWAT team is arriving. Absolutely. Suppose does f-stop do anything meaningful here? Yeah, it's just very soft. So, I'm not sure what we can do there. I suppose we can always make the contrast a little bit harsher. Can try that. Turn Hunrath into a sunset environment. But even if it wasn't for the background, I think what I'm really interested in is that we can use lighting that we may like, either in regards to color or mood or whatnot. And if we don't have a HDRI for our scenes available, we can just make ourselves one from our favorite video games. I think that is really cool. Trekkie Patrick! Awesome, thank you for joining us. Very exciting. So yes, I thought, this is kind of cool to do this, and I believe Dreamlab tried this with Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which is also supported. So I guess there's just a lot that you can do, and I'm sure if somebody were to come up with an action that lets us literally export things from the game and then just go and click one button, Photoshop does its thing, and then we have a usable HDR image, that'd be kind of cool. So I'm intending to play around with this a little bit more and see what we can come up with. I think it could be cool. Exactly, live HDRI and prosper. I like that. My friends, this is really all that I'll be showing you today, because it's kind of just an introduction of what we can do. But before I go, I have a little bit of an announcement to make. Nothing major, but I've decided that I'm going to take a break from these live streams for a little bit. So in a way, this is kind of almost like season 1, series finale, that sort of thing. So I'm thinking what I've noticed is that I do have a lot of time that goes into preparing these live streams, just the 3D live streams, but it's one of those things that I'd rather have that time used for something else. So I think we can pick these up, the Friday live streams, for something else if we change the format slightly. There's some things that don't really work well for me. One thing is that it's difficult to interact with you guys. Sometimes it's also more important that I I kind of nail things and turn it into a shorter descriptive tutorial that people can watch, that's kind of easier than to go through like an hour and a half long live stream. They do have their merits, but there's just something that for me it's not working that well. So it was a lovely experiment, and I'm not saying I'm gonna stop doing them, but thank you so much, Biscuits. That's very nice of you. I appreciate that. But I think I want to just let my creative muse mull over how we can change this format to something that works better for me, for you, and for everyone involved. Perhaps turn it into something like a co-live stream or something. This is not going to affect the game streams, because the game streams on Saturday and on Monday, they're very different for me, because there's literally no preparation, and we'll just all sit down and hang. And I'd love to do that in some shape or form using the 3D thing as a topic. I just haven't quite worked out how to do that. So I think after 27 episodes, I think we've had a good run, I guess. So on that note, my friends, thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to join me maybe tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a little bit of underwater shenanigans. We'll see if we can dive deep and find that lava castle with our big Cyclops. Then on Monday, we'll continue our exciting journey with Abduction, and we'll see what else we find. I believe we're just on the cusp of meeting somebody new in the game that we're going to help, and hopefully we can, finish that game at some point and see what the devastating conclusion of Abduction actually are. For all of your viewership over the last 27 episodes and literally almost 8 months, I thank you so much. And I'll say have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.